the In Touch live podcast speaker series. Today we're gonna be talking about quantum computing, or better yet, post quantum computing. We have over here with us distinguished guest Mike Silverman. Thank you for being with us, Mike.
Well,
today.
thank you for having me. Yeah.
Really quick, Mike has been in the artificial intelligence and post-quantum computing industry for about 25 years.
Yep.
In and out, mainly experiencing the financial services, technology, and cybersecurity.
Yep.
So we actually have you as an expert.
Yes.
Please, really quick.
Yeah. So it's funny
yourself.
for me to say I started in AI in 1996, just doing academic research projects. I had no idea that AI would become what it has today. It was just cool computer science problems to be looking at. I was in it for many years. I spent a lot of my time in financial services and development and strategy, then was a management consultant for years, advising companies on how to use technology to further their corporate goals or strategic goals. Went back into producing software again for financial services from much more of an innovation and big picture perspective. Then got into security and post-quantum cryptography. And throughout all this time, AI wasn't really a thing. And then all of a sudden, ChatGPT came out in 2021, right? And it, bam, all of a sudden everyone cared about AI. And so the confluence of emerging technologies between AI, PQC as we call it, yeah, it's been a wild ride over the last few years for sure.
So we're going to be talking today about quantum computing,
Yep.
which is the QC, and
Yes.
then we have the post-QC, which
Right.
is the post-quantum computing.
Right.
So it sounds like a science fiction, right?
In some ways it is, yeah, it
is.
It's out there for sure, yes.
So we will be talking today about what it is exactly,
Mm-hmm.
how does businesses may be affected by or would be involved in,
Yep.
and how does that affect the cybersecurity, the insurance industry as well, and why people start paying attention to it.
Yeah.
So as a decision maker, people have heard the term post-quantum cryptography and thought this sounds complicated, right? I know I for one. And people are not alone.
Right.
Definitely not alone.
Yeah.
So today we're going to try to break it down in plain English.
Yep. 100%.
Right?
Yes, 100%.
So that people, businesses, owners, CEOs, decision makers, will be able to conceptually understand quantum computing and how to go about in the nearest future or long future.
No, of course.
So, really quick, what exactly is quantum computing?
Yeah, okay. And I'm going to do this again, as we said, in plain English.
Please.
If I use some fancy terms, don't worry about them, okay? So, computers today, traditional computers, as we know, classic computers, go by bits, zeros and ones, right? And let's say you're trying to guess the combination of your luggage, right? We'll go to the old Spaceballs movie joke, right? You'll have to start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to go in order. It's sequential, right? And you look at the binary bits. And yes, classic computers can parallelize. You can have multiple engines, but you go, okay, you look at 1 through 10, you look at 11 through 20, and so on, right? You still are incrementing through brute force, as we call it. Quantum computers exist differently. Now, there are two fancy terms out there that, they have qubits. These things exist as both zeros and ones at the same time. It's called superposition. Just in your mind, just think about the fact that they are constantly searching, and until you say, solve the problem, they're existing in like this spin, if you will. You say, okay, problem solved. Then they snap to the answer. Then they go to 0 or 1. Then there's what's called entanglement. Again, fancy terms. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the math behind it. If I take this superposition qubit, I can entangle others with it. So now I'm not just doing 0, 1. I can make longer strings of numbers to solve the problem. And why you've been hearing quantum computers in the news lately is that we're finally getting to the points where we can entangle more and more of these qubits to work with numbers and problems that actually can make business sense for people. A lot of the big players, the big tech firms you've probably heard of, are making huge investments in this space and are starting to realize on their gains. So that's why you've been hearing about it today. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So, if I'm moving one step,
Yeah.
so is it more of a theoretical, or quantum computing is being used today?
So it's a little of both. You will probably never have a quantum computer in your house, right?
No?
If you're gonna, no,
Oh,
probably not. No,
bummer.
but you wouldn't need it, right? If you're gonna watch movies online or play MP3s or play video games, you don't need a quantum computer for that. A classic computer is going to do that. Quantum computers exist to solve very specific mathematical problems, right? So where we're seeing it used today is in chemistry, formulations for chemical bonds. We're seeing it in very complex supply chain optimizations in that industry. We're seeing it in financial analysis, portfolio optimizations, derivative risk analysis. Those are really, we call it stochastic analysis, right? Quantum computers can help get through that. Again, we're not at the point that these computers are so big that it's going to solve all of our problems, but we're starting to identify what types of problems can come from these things.
Okay. So would you say that it's security more related than anything else?
No, it's business. It's right now. It's been business.
Business.
It is business focused. It's trying to solve real world problems, which is fantastic, right? That's the upside of quantum computing.
So what would be the cryptography portion of quantum computing? In a nutshell.
Yeah. So
Because
that's
you hear
yeah.
about it as well.
Yeah, it's the downside, right? It's the downside risk. And we were talking before the show here. There was Dr. Earl Weiner created the laws of autopilots for airplanes. And one of the rules, he said, is with every invention or automation, you're solving problems. And you just hope that the problems you're solving are less than the problems you're creating. And in this case, we're actually creating huge problems for ourselves with the technology. And so we've got our problem here. So the cryptography issue is RSA. And again, I will do very, very simplistic, no math here whatsoever, I promise.
Okay.
But the way we encrypt traffic on the internet today is called asymmetric cryptography. Public-private keys. And again, don't worry about that too much. Those algorithms are based primarily on factoring really, really large numbers. The ability to factor these large numbers into 2 prime numbers. Again, really large numbers. From the brute force attacks to try to figure out how to factor this really long number into 2 primes takes years, and that's why it's been very secure. In 1994, Professor Peter Shor created what he called Shor's algorithm, which could theoretically run on a quantum computer and factor very large prime numbers. And we're starting to get quantum computers that can start, we've seen this work in practice, that quantum computers are starting to be able to factor large numbers. Now, not large enough that it'll break cryptography, but starting to get to the point that we have to go, the threat is real to this form of cryptography. We want to get ahead of this threat so that when quantum computers become sufficiently large, it's not an issue, right? We've already replaced the algorithms that are based on this ability to factor large prime numbers. So why you've been hearing it in the news is that we're seeing advancements on both sides. Quantum computers are getting longer. More and more qubits are being entangled. At the same time, we're finding improvements to Shor's algorithm on how many qubits you need to solve the problem, right? So we're getting bigger, and the finish line is getting closer and closer because we're moving it backwards and backwards. So we're in this race to, when the quantum computer is big enough to hit that magical number, cryptography could be broken for traffic over the internet.
Which can be raise security concerns.
It's a huge, absolutely, yes.
So when we go with a secure socket layer, the SSL, the HTTPS of the world, as you said before,
yes,
that's the one that can be the endangered.
100%. That is the key
As
right
you
now.
go to your bank, you put in your password.
Yes.
This encryption.
That encryption
That's
could be
part
broken.
of it.
Yeah. Bank, insurance, anything. Your passwords and things could be gone. Yep.
So it's like replacing a lock in the building before inventing the master key.
Exactly. If someone figured out how to do, think of it lockpicks, right? If the traditional tumbler locks are broken, you replace it with electronic. You want to do that before that lockpick thing works. And so that's where we are right now as an industry.
So is the sky falling, or it's about to fall?
The sky is not falling. Look, there is no quantum computer that can break this today. We have time on our side, but we need to be prudent and smart about what we do with this, right? If we, everyone will say the best day to start preparing is yesterday.
Sure.
The second best day is today.
Sure.
So we need to start thinking about this. But again, the sky is not falling. We have time on our side for right now. Let's use it to our advantage. Yeah?
So no panicking.
No panic. Do
No
not
panic.
panic. No.
So quick questions about the risk and the decryption. Hacking exists every day of the week, twice a week. Depends on the day of the week.
I mean, some banks get millions of attacks a day. I mean, it's happening 100%.
So this information is literally being harvested by the bad guy.
Yes.
Or the bad group.
Mm-hmm.
Once quantum computing is real, is production ready. Again, understanding that not every computer, not any household, every household will have power computing.
Yeah.
What should people be aware of? People should be aware about it now, or is it something even to discuss about?
My colleagues and I in the industry, the experts, we have debated this. It's something called harvest now, decrypt later, or store now, decrypt later, right? And this is mostly done by nation states that have the capabilities to ingest massive amounts of internet traffic kind of things, right? And store it for later. And we're talking petabytes and huge amounts of data. And, and a lot of it's going to be garbage, right? So you got to really figure out what it is you're storing. From a financial services perspective, we've done exercises on this. I've done this with governments around the world and the industries, and specifically financial services industry and intelligence community. The general consensus is that for financial services, it's not a huge deal, this harvest now, decrypt later, or HNDL. The thinking is that your portfolio that they're going to get has likely changed greatly. What you're trading today is probably not what you're going to have tomorrow. The password you have can be easily reset. And so if they get your password, just reset the password and that's done. If they want your social security number or other PII, there's easier ways of doing that than building a quantum computer. It's probably already in the dark web. So just go there and find that kind of stuff. Okay. So from a financial services perspective, yes, there's definitely risk. Don't get me wrong. Long held contract, 50 or 100-year mortgages or loan documents, sure. Tampering with those could be at risk, possibly. Health could be at risk. But the bigger concern we're worried about is military and our responses to things, right? So one nation invades another. What does the third party do? What are they looking at? What are the red lines? How are they communicating, right? So nation states could be looking at that for military responses for future attacks. That could be one to claim. The bigger issue we've seen with this, with harvest now, decrypt later, is not the actual data, but we have things called certificates on the internet that claims I am Mike, right? And I am Mike's bank or Mike's financial institution, right? Mike's insurance company. Sure. And that way, when you transact with me, you're talking to just me, just my company. In theory, quantum computing could copy that certificate that makes it look like there's 3 or 4 Mike's insurance companies out there. And then you wouldn't know who you're transacting with. That's the bigger risk for financial services, is that lack of trust in the community rather than the actual theft of data itself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think the insurance company should be rethinking cybersecurity.
One thing I've been going around is that for many years, cryptography has been treated as a lower class citizen. There's a handful of people in our firm, especially the big firms. They handle the cryptography. They handle the standards. They tell us what to do. We go and do it, and we're fine. I'm not going to say that's a mistake, but we've had so many cryptographic transitions through the years. Some of us with no or gray hair may remember RSA 1024 to 2048, single DES to triple DES to AES for the payments industries, SHA-1, the SHA-2. There's been a few of these things. Again, if you don't know these numbers, don't worry about it. Just know that we've had to replace cryptography before in the industry. And we haven't been learning the lessons because every time we just treat it as a one-off, just get through this and we'll be fine and it'll work the rest of our lifetime. Well, the number of endpoints, the number of computers we're using or services we're using is just growing exponentially. And every time we have one of these one-off transitions, it's that much harder for us. We need to be thinking differently and thinking about cryptography in a different light now.
Interesting. And we've been replaced, so there's also the amount of bits and bytes that been involved in the encryption too.
Yes.
So we used to have like the 1024, then it came the 1048, then
4096, the powers of 2. Every time you double it, from a classical sense, that's a lot more brute force effort. But for a quantum computer, every time you add 1 bit, you're handling that power of 2 almost instantaneously. So,
So, businesses-wise, what should company be doing about it today? Is there anything to do about it today?
Oh, there's absolutely things you can be doing. One, I love asking this question. How many institutions out there know where 100% of the cryptographic keys are? Whether it be certificates or just keys to vaults or just whatever it may be, or just traffic on the internet. I have not found one institution of any significant size that understands where 100% of their keys are.
And if they know where the keys are, it's being locked by another key, which is... I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, but it's fine. No, you're right. But the first step is inventory. What is the size of the problem? A lot of companies, especially in financial services, have grown by acquisition. So one unit works on one way, and stores their keys one way. Another unit stores it differently. So let's think about this as a whole. 2, current state processes. How often do you rotate your certificates? What's the process? What are the standards for that? Again, if you've grown by acquisition, you may not have really looked at standardizing those sort of things. It's working just fine, just keep it, right? So look at how are we being consistent about how we apply cryptography? You could start that today very easily. Start to add cryptography to your asset management processes, because that's something that almost all companies, it is a recommended practice, not even a best practice. It is a clear practice. You should be doing asset management. So just add it to that. It's an incremental change. And that way you start to identify how much cryptography do we have on the line. And then we can start to say, how much do we control in code and what we have to fix versus what are we relying on our vendors for, and start to think about those conversations with our vendors to make sure that they're up to speed on these sort of things.
So we're talking, in generally speaking, the crypto agility, to bring an environment, ecosystem around it, right?
Crypto agility means a few things. I was fortunate enough to be a group called FSISAC, where we wrote the first, arguably, the first comprehensive paper to define what cryptographic agility is. Because that term has been used way too many times in way too many ways, and it's been bastardized. I'll say that word. What we defined it as is it's a design principle and an architectural mindset. So think about this way. When you are fully cryptographically agile, you could replace the cryptography of your products with no downtime business impacts. Okay? That is fully cryptographic agile. The reality is you're not just one day not agile and the next day agile, right? There's a huge maturity curve to this, and how much automation and how much downtime you can do. It's absolutely a process. You probably can't do it alone. You need the whole community involved with this. So we also defined a maturity curve for it. There's a whole lot that goes into it, but that is the overall concept. If we're thinking about the long-term goal here, if we're going to make cryptography a first-class citizen, it's how do we start thinking about being able to replace cryptography at a moment's notice. That's the end goal, right? Replace cryptography at a moment's notice so that if there's a change of some kind, we're ready and prepared for it.
So in your opinion, are businesses ready for this transition, or are they still evolving? Where would you place your finger?
I'd say it's mixed.
It's a mix. Okay.
It's a mix. There are some that are absolutely pressing, and I thank for those that are supporting and are aware of these efforts and trying to rally the communities for it. There are others that realistically, they're trying to, we say, kick the can down the road. They're trying to prolong this as long as they can. Why? If we look at business today, and we talked about it earlier, AI is becoming huge, and you're trying to make huge investments there for your top line. You have new financial products, new insurance products, new things that are coming, new ways you want to engage with your customers. All that takes time, resources, and training to do. And then you say, here's this cryptography thing that it'll be a few years before it's going to be a real impact. Let me worry about that later, right? So, and I don't fault businesses for that. But again, if we start small, we can start to make ground on. My point here is we can start small. We can start making ground. We can start to get our hands around this without having massive investments.
So would you say that there are standards, or more or less, there are progressing standards, or whatever you want to say, but adoption is just in the beginning?
Very well said, Erez. So NIST, the National Institute of Science and Technology, has published what they call a FIPS standard, or actually several FIPS standards. Okay. Federal Information Processing Standards, I think is what that stands for. Don't quote me on that.
And this is available on the web. It's publicly information, right?
Yeah, and the replacement for what's RSA, or ECC, is called ML-Chem, okay, key encapsulation. And don't worry, you don't have to be a PhD to understand this, to use this, because I'm not a PhD. I tried to watch some videos or some tutorials on how ML-Chem works. It's called lattice math. And I'm a math minor, and I started to get through some of the steps, and then got to step 6, and I just went, I don't know what you did there. I don't understand this. And I rewound it a few times, and I went, you know what, I'm going to trust the PhDs on this, and just, okay, they say it works. Some really smart people have tested these things. Just go with it. So that standard is out there. Okay. The way and FIPS standards are needed mostly for financial services, especially in the United States. Okay. You don't get away without that. It's recommended by many regulators. Okay. So then there's the certificate standards that we need next. And groups like the Internet Engineering Task Force and some others are trying to define what those certificates look like. The one we're standardizing on is something called hybrid, which is the old way, the RSA or ECC way, plus the ML-Chem way. So that way, if somehow RSA is broken, you don't have to immediately change your certificates because the ML-Chem part will still be good. Okay. Or if somehow the new lattice math is broken, we still have a fallback here. We're giving ourselves more things. What's not fully defined completely as an ecosystem is what those certificates truly look like actually like pen to paper, this bit goes here and this goes there, and subtle differences. Each vendor is implementing this in subtle different ways, and that's causing interoperability challenges at the moment. We as a community are trying to work through that and standardize that. We're waiting, the standards are getting finalized. The committees are really working. They know the urgency. They're working through it. So then end to end, we hopefully soon will have a clear process. And so your big vendors are starting to implement these things and start to put it out.
So mostly the large businesses.
The large businesses. Yeah. The downstream impact is that smaller vendors, maybe even financial services specific vendors, are waiting on sometimes those large vendors for them to be able to do their work. So it's a whole cascade approach. Yeah.
Because they're procuring off-the-shelf products here.
Yeah. Yep.
So overall, generally speaking, are businesses, in your opinions, are ready to transition, or they're still? Well, I'm sure that some of them are going to be on the sideline for the long haul.
Yeah, absolutely. Some have started transitioning, and they don't even know it, to be honest. No, they don't. A lot of browsers, Chrome, Firefox, browsers that many of us, Edge, use today, are already starting to bake PQC transactions, ML-Chem transactions into it. The major CDNs, the Cloudflares, the Akamais, and the Fastly's of the world are already ready to receive those connections. Those are companies that handle and secure a lot of the web traffic for a lot of big companies, right? So they're the front end. They handle a lot of the attacks. So customers of yours, if they're connecting through Cloudflare or through Akamai or these CDNs, and they're using a modern browser, that part may already be handled. Unbeknown to them, and it's working just fine, right? The parts that aren't are the services you're holding. If you're putting out web services or APIs or other sort of specific things that are not general traffic but are maybe for business to business or that kind of stuff, that may not be as updated as quickly.
Okay, so again, enterprise will be probably in the planning already. Enterprise businesses, mid-market, large companies would be maybe unaware of it or waiting for the products to be available to them, and small businesses are just tagging along.
There's a push versus pull too, right? So insurance companies, financial services firms know they have to do this. Sure. There's also the push side, which is the regulators are saying, no, we need this done by a certain date because we think quantum computers are going to be sufficiently large by a certain date. So in the US, for national security systems, if you handle classified data, you must be done by 2030. You must have all of this done.
So 2030 is the date.
Yes. No system can be running on the outdated algorithms.
So no matter what we do 5 to 10 years from now, we have to face it.
Well, that's for national security. Financial services hasn't really come up with such an edict globally. Now, there are some recommendations. The problem is that each jurisdiction is a little different than the other, right? I'm not going to name and shame anyone here, but there's some countries that want to go 2031, some that want to go 2029, some that go 2030. And so we as a community are also trying to work together because if you say, oh, one country needs me to go 2029, well, that's the date. Yes, it's nice that the other country wants to go 2031, but I'm already done because this one's pushing forward. And so if 2029 is the date, then that means vendors, I need this in 2028. And that means major suppliers, I need that in 2027 so the other vendors can do, it's a whole cascade here, right? And it's a lot of work to push these things. So we got to be clear about when we say what a date is. Because that means ratifications. The listeners of this podcast, you're listening going, gee, when do I really have to have this done by? Yes, I want to do the right thing and I don't want to be caught with a breach or anything, but it's that push versus pull versus all the other demands of my time. So it's a really tricky problem that we're all facing right now. If you have the luxury and the resources, definitely get on it. But, it's other firms, I get why you're hesitant and hoping that others can help you with it or consulting firms that do exist can help you with that as well.
So I'm gonna kind of dissect for a different thing. We all business people. We're all entrepreneurs. AI came about, artificial intelligence came about. Everybody was thinking, how can I make money about it? Right? It's the next question.
Yes.
Can you make money off quantum computing? And is it revenue driven?
It's absolutely not. And that's the problem, and why it doesn't get as much attention is because those top line things I mentioned earlier, AI or crypto or cryptocurrencies or whatever it may be, right? I have not figured out a case to make to a board of how you're going to grow your line. This is purely a risk management function of don't be caught out if somehow North Barilia comes out and says, I have they won't even have a press release. They'll just start.
They're just going to do it.
Just going to start stealing data, and all of a sudden you're going to go, this is weird, right?
Yeah.
So it's purely a risk management function at this point, unfortunately.
Interesting.
But if I may, you talked about AI. I'll talk about AI here.
Go ahead.
So we've seen in the news recently that some new models are saying that they can hack systems and exploit vulnerabilities very quickly.
Sure.
We've seen it for a few years now. About even 2 years ago, we saw it. If you gave an AI model, a frontier model, a CVE, which is a critical vulnerability exploit, right? If you gave it the write-up, it could build a proof of concept to exploit that. And that was about 2 years ago. So to hear the announcements today that frontier models or new versions can quickly examine systems and identify vulnerabilities and exploit them is not that big of a change. It feels on par with where we've been heading. So, okay, you have systems that can find these vulnerabilities quickly. Next point, we're writing code more than we've ever written because of AI.
That's true.
Right? GitHub COO came out saying, I think, forget me wrong, we're writing, I'm not going to say the numbers, but I think it's like 14% more code will be written in 2026 than in 2025 alone on GitHub and posted there. 14 times.
That's a lot.
You think all that code's bug-free?
Probably not.
Right? So now you have more code, more things being written.
Right.
You have systems that can decode, can find the vulnerabilities that much quicker. We're in for a bad place. Cryptography, our opportunity here is to consider cryptography one of those same vulnerabilities, right? Since we already have to start ramping up the vulnerability conversations as it is and thinking differently, add cryptography to that. And it's just another incremental thing that we're going to have to be doing as an industry.
Interesting. So CEOs, board members, board of directors, what will be the takeaway that you would recommend, or what you will point out? Do they have any question? Sorry. Do they have any question that I need to ask first? What's the process?
The first thing I'd look at is actually people. People is my number one thing. Do people understand the problem? Are they still considering cryptography that it just works? No, we need to think differently about it, right? Okay. If they get that training and they get the visible commitment from you as a leader, CEO, board, whatever, CTO, CIO, etc. This is important. This is now a first-class citizen like all the other things. We need to be doing this the right way to protect our data, to protect our customers, to protect our business as a whole. If the people understand that, the incremental work to handle cryptography will be done naturally as part of it. But they need to be incentivized. They need to be told that this is one of the priorities amongst many of the other priorities. And without that teaching, without that, if I'm a developer and I've never learned about cryptography before, I'm just going to keep doing the old things. Help me understand why I need to be thinking differently about this here.
So in a nutshell, really quick, it's not an IT issue. It's a strategic risk management. It's the practices that more evolve in the business.
It's funny you use those words because
which one?
The risk management word, because even amongst experts, there's still some debate as to when a quantum computer will be big enough to break cryptography as we know it, the asymmetric cryptography. Sure. There are some that believe that it'll never happen in our lifetimes, that we're overstating the problem. And that from a risk management perspective, for us to say we have to put all of our chips in and change everything around isn't necessary. And that's one end of the spectrum. I'd say others that are worried that this could happen in the next 3 to 4 years, possibly, right? So it is totally a risk management exercise at this point on, do we want to get caught out? Is that a risk we are willing to take? And as we're seeing more and more announcements from the major technology firms of the advancements that they're making, I think that risk conversation in boards and leadership teams is going, I'm not sure we can be, putting it off as a low risk anymore. I think we need to start elevating this risk to more. Even if somehow quantum computers isn't the break for cryptography, it could be AI. It could be a mathematical exploit. We cannot just assume that this is going to work anymore, and we need to be ready in case something does go wrong with cryptography.
I like it. But it's depressing too.
I'm not trying to be a fearmonger. You asked me if the sky is falling. The sky is not falling. Not yet. We have time. Let's use that time wisely.
I know it reminds me of 2000. I don't know if you remember the 2000, and people were predicting the computer would stop operating. It's going to be a doomsday. It did not happen.
Well, okay, it didn't happen. That's a great example. It didn't happen because we knew the date. December 31st, 1999, you had to be ready.
Midnight.
Midnight, right. Yeah. I remember seeing something that the only thing that went down was a nuclear reactor in Ukraine or something, and all it did was scram and just shut down. So it was fine. Many firms had gotten the word, okay, we need to be ready, and they pushed it too long, and they hired consultants, and they did what they had to do. The term is called Q-Day. When is that day that quantum computers will be big enough?
Right.
I can't tell you that date.
Well,
right.
I don't think anyone.
No one can. No, right. No one can. Right. I can't. No one can. And because of that, that's what's delaying or pausing some of the investment here. Now, one other recent case. Do you remember Log4j? That thing. It happened at the end of 2021.
Yeah, rings a bell.
It was a bug that was a remote exploit bug. That it's a logging utility for Java applications, and it's independent and just works on little production systems, and just log it to a file, log it to a seam, whatever it may be, just log. They found an issue with it, and they came out with, it took 4 versions, but they finally came out with a good patch. And they said, anytime you can, just apply this patch, fix it, and you'll close the vulnerability. It took 6 months later, a major financial services firm still had not done 100% remediation. And that was just a patch, because it's so hard to shut down or take down some of these critical systems, whether it be credit cards or online banking or whatever it may be, insurance, whatever it may be. And now I'm saying, hey, cryptography is not just a patch. It's sometimes rewriting, replacing. And you have to do this in coordination with ecosystems. So if you're talking payments, both sides, both parties of the transaction need to be doing it. Exchanges need to be doing this, right? It's not just done independently anymore. So the sooner we start having those conversations, the better off we're going to be here. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're going to be summarizing this thing really quick.
We don't have AI for that?
No, that would be a great thing. My wife the other day, she summarized a discussion that she has with a button of an AI.
Right.
And she doesn't remember any time that she had to repeat or to ask another questions or to correct the thing. It's almost like perfect. It's scary.
It is scary.
It's scary. So quantum computing.
Yes.
Quantum computing today may not affect today's or tomorrow's businesses.
Correct.
But it's the process, it's the thinking, it's the planning that we should be aware of.
Yes.
Doing something about it.
Yes.
For the future sake of the businesses.
I will reiterate, especially if you're hearing the technical words here, a quantum computer, it sounds scary. You don't have to be using a quantum computer yourself to be impacted by this here, right? If you want to, some big financial services firms will absolutely, and they are starting to use that and explore it. It will be a business. That will be the top line growth part. The rest of it is just about a risk management and cryptography conversation that quantum computers is exposing. Once we get through it, once we become cryptographically agile, which will not happen in a day or a week, it will take time, hopefully this part of it will be behind us and we can focus on the positives of quantum computing.
Awesome.
Yes.
So with that, we will be ending our podcast. I want to thank all of you for being with us. I want to thank you, our distinguished.
Oh, of course. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And stay tuned for other podcasts. Thank you.